Hey everyone. So we're going to talk about a few new things today. We're going to try to tie them together as best we can. And the things that I want to talk about are, we understand, well, let me go over exactly what we've gone over already, right? So we understand that something's going on. I'm trying to explain some things. I'm bringing them all together. And I'm using some vessels, the rules of the world, our minds, games, puzzles, who we are as people, and where we're going. So let's kind of get to the end of that and kind of look at the big picture for a second, and let's pretend we're in the future, and let's pretend that memory is the only thing that matters, the only form of currency, all right? And let's pretend that processing speed is a close second as far as value. So how fast we can go through things and what it is we have to go through, and that's kind of all that matters. So let's kind of pretend, kind of go there with me, okay? I know, I'm crazy, right? And we're trying to figure these things out. And we're going to use something called incremental advantage today, which you know about well, and you understand that it is another part of resource management and application in real time. And you're learning, you want to be more efficient, but now how do we get from where we're doing things that take 17 years and we want to do them in 10 minutes? How can we do that? That's not possible. How can you scale that? And I've been told by many people throughout my life, lots of brilliant minds can see what it is needs to be done, but can't figure out how to apply it and then do it on a regular day in, day out basis, because we're still human, and remember, we can only do what we can do. So we've got to figure out how to help each other, because then we might be able to get it all done. Okay, so incremental advantage. We are human beings, and we have to get through a process of these things to be able to free our minds and be able to create new ideas slowly or fast, or slowly then fast. And the way we do that is each day we try a little harder and we try a little more and we do a little more for ourselves. For me, some examples as I've been using, because that's the best tool, is self-examination. I've lost a bunch of weight, more than my body weight now. And what's cool about that is it was a long process, and I got to learn a ton about what it was each day to try a little harder and go backwards at times, but still overall see the big picture and realize that I was moving in the right direction. Because there's really only two directions in the world and in existence, and there's the descension and the ascension. And that's it. So it is absolute, guys. And no, don't worry about a single day, don't worry about a year, don't worry about 50 years. You've got to worry about everything total. And our lives are in a current form, or what we believe to be them in, is 76 years or 100 years or whatever. Some of us are starting to accept that maybe it might be a little longer, and maybe there's something to these ideas that Raymond Kurzweil has and various other creation theorists and philosophers, and the understanding of the circle and how big it really might be. But we've got to do today whatever we can to get where we're going and to be a part of this. So let's talk about how to free our minds a little bit and what we can do incrementally to do that. So we've got, again, our families, we've got our work, we've got currency, we've got worry, we've got stress, we've got all these things. We've got to minimize them, we've got to be more efficient with them, but we got to do it over time. So let's think about what we can do. For me, I started with 5 minutes on a treadmill, 5 minutes on a Stairmaster for working out. And now 5 to 7 miles. It's a pretty far distance to travel as far as what I can do, and it wasn't one step, obviously. So we did 5 minutes on the Stairmaster, 5 minutes on the treadmill, and then 2 days later we did 7 minutes and 7 minutes, and 2 days later we did 9, and 2 days later we did 11, and we just kept going. And again, you have to remember that your effort is everything here. You've got to give yourself the tools to be able to do these things. So you've got to take care of your body, and you've got to figure out how to take care of your mind. You've got to go over all these different nuances of your being in order to be able to not have them affect you the ways that they can tie you down. And you've got to do it incrementally, because it's not a switch where you can just immediately have everything evaporate from your mind, obviously. And many of you look at me and you say, yeah, whatever, Gabe, this isn't possible. Or many of you look at me and you're like, I'm working on this, and it's going to take me a while, but I see where you're going. I'm really excited to go there with you. And I'm not sure where you're going to end up because you're you and no one knows where you're going to end up, but maybe you have some idea of incrementally where you're going, and maybe you're trying to be as efficient as possible in this process. So if we look at any sort of thing that we have to do, our relationships, or we have to work on our families, we have to have a certain amount of currency, whatever we need in order to free our minds, we can do that in increments, right? We can do that with resources, we can do that with money, we can do that with lands. That's what I was going to say. We can do that with lands, we can do that with spells, and we figure out how to get an advantage over ourselves over time, and how best to use it over time to further our existence as ourselves. So, one thing that we do is we try to make everyone around us happy incrementally. We try to go to school for them or for ourselves. We try to be a part of whatever societal groups that they want us to be a part of. And in a sense, we do this incrementally in our minds. We can take so much, and then we can take a little more, 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 and then we start to figure out ways subconsciously to sort of ignore the environment that we're in while being present, and that is an incremental advantage. Because even though we're here, our thoughts aren't. And that's what's really cool, because now we can use our thoughts for whatever we want, and that's another way to be more efficient in an abstract way of looking at it. Because even though you're present and people feel that presence from you, you can still be kind of lost in thought and building a new JStack or figuring out a new way to 5-bet bluff more efficiently 1 in 14 times while you're still sitting with your family and being present and doing things for them. And when you start to compound those things, I know I said before, overlapping them can be dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. But if you can start to figure it out for yourself slowly, then you can put them together and really start to compress things, you see, which is really cool, because if you can spend all the time you need to making whatever currency you feel you have to, and then on top of that, spending time with your family somehow within that as well, and getting the maximum amount of emotional uplift as well. Well, now you've done all of your magical 168 in a magical 2, or a magical 40, or a magical 20, or a magical 1, and now you've got an ample amount of time to do whatever you want. So let's talk about day 1. Day 1 is all about mindset. You've got to accept that there are things that you want to work on to get where you're going. And not just subconsciously, because we all walk around all the time and think about the things that we want to work on. That's basically everyone's plight in life. They think about the things that they need to fix, or they change, or they wish they had, or they dreamed they could get, but they don't take the necessary steps to free their minds of those constraints. They think dreams are necessary. Well, that's interesting, because dreams are just a step away from reality with some increments in between. And that's what's kind of cool, because how could we feed all the kids? How could we create new energy sources? How could we have all these things without some sort of process in between? And now what's interesting, y'all, is the future is really cool. It's brand new, and what we're going to use in it, for those of you that have been studying a lot and know a lot about it, is memory. That's it. That's what we're going to need the most. We're going to need everything that's happened. We're going to need new forms of book, because we're not going to have paper form. It's all going to be digitized, or it's all going to be stored in hardware with such minimal amounts of space for software that within that hardware, basically unlimited amounts can be stored, and our minds are going to be almost obsolete if we're not careful. If we have all these worries and they get in the way of what we need to work on as a unit. And when I say unit, I mean 7 billion people currently, and of course it increases every moment. And when we get everyone working on the same things, the collective unconscious that we're all moving towards, because we're so interconnected now, it's happening with or without us, right? Like the increments are going with or without us. And we've got to prepare for what it is that we're going to be able to accomplish with that. So, day 1, we accept that. We accept that there's some cool stuff happening in the world, and we don't live in this world of denial. And in that, we go from descending to ascending. That's the first step. Because now, our priorities are going to change. We're going to be more efficient, and incrementally we're going to start working on the things we need to work on. So we've got to get ourselves in shape. We've got to get, and mentally, I mean, physically is obvious, mental is obvious, emotional is obvious, spiritual is obvious. These things have to happen. And we've got to really look at ourselves and figure out how to do those things for ourselves. You've got to spend the time to figure out the best way dietarily to live, and you've got to incrementally do it. So if right now you're drinking 15 sodas and you're drinking 48 beers, you've got to go to 14 sodas and you've got to go to 47 beers before you can get to 1 beer, before you can get to 0 sodas. You've got to do these things. Before you can get to 2,000 calories from 7,000, you've got to go to 6. And you've got to understand that it's a rubber band, all right? It's a direction on a graph, but it's also a rubber band. So within that slope, there's going to be volatility, and you've got to accept that. And you can't let it deter you, because the first thing you've already accepted, day one, is that you've got to change. You've got to accept that the future is memory, and the future is coming because it is. And everything that matters is about to be warped, and you've got to start prioritizing and being prepared for that. And you can't know what it's going to be, because it's the future. But you can prepare yourself for the tools that you're going to need. And you can maximize those. Because think about what percentage of our minds we use right now. Incrementally, we've got to increase that. And we've got to take the baby steps to do that. So start to think about what things are the most important and what you can do tomorrow to further those for yourself. And do it. Because we have to. We're the only ones that can. You can only do what you can do. I can only do what I can do. You can only do what you can do. Don't forget that. I got your back, but you gotta have your own. You know what I mean? That's it. Alright. Incremental advantage, tie it into everything else. Think about it in the games. Think about it in life. Think about what you need to do it. And work on it. And we'll talk soon. I'm going to take a few days, maybe a week, to kind of restructure my mind and take this a step further for everyone. And you'll hear from me shortly. I've got some things to do. So, all right, I'll talk to y'all soon, and good luck with everything. Have a good week. And, yep, that's it. Bye.